Hi there. With the soft whir of your fan, we're easing into the hard, complicated world of Comanche captivity on the southern plains across the 18th and 19th centuries, from border settlements along the rivers to dusty towns watching the horizon. And history here works like a dimmer, not a switch. The rescue many families prayed for often shattered lives a second time. If you enjoy calm, clear bedtime history told without rush, press like and subscribe only if it truly serves you, and come back whenever you want more quiet, careful stories of the past. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is there, so I can picture this little circle stretching from night owls to early birds. Unclench your jaw and let your breath slow. Comanche captivity followed rules, incentives, and hard trade-offs that shaped women's choices under pressure, and the help many hoped for carried its own cost. So let the room's quiet hold as we slip toward first light on the plains under a pale sky. Cold air sits over short grass. The horizon runs flat and far. Dawn light lifts in a thin band. Horses shift in their pickets. Breath clouds and smoke smells faint. Men and women roll bedding and lash poles, and the creak of a rawhide rope at a saddle horn slides into the quiet. Comancheria covers wide grass from the Arkansas country to the Rio Grande, from New Mexico towns to the Texas plains. The edges move with rain, raids, and deals. Spanish, Mexican, Texan, and later American posts sit along the rim. This frontier works like a marketplace of risks, not a duel. Captives sit at the center of that system. They fetch goods at trade fairs, buy time in talks, and fill gaps made by war. Some are folded into families to replace the dead, or married to stitch kin between bands and partners. Work ranges from tending lodges and herds to cooking, sewing, and moving camp. A few are moved again, sold to traders who know the roads to San Antonio, Taos, or Chihuahua. Women face a wide spread of fates. Some suffer cruelty and heavy labor under watch. Some are shielded and adopted, given new names and roles, and over time, a few gain standing with age, skill, and children. Others find a moment and try to run. Many are exchanged and go back to kin, and the return can mean strict rules, silence, or blame. Good and bad rarely stood on one side for long. Ransom customs and trade draw camps toward towns, because horses, guns, and gifts held bands together and opened trails home. Therefore, people who could be ransomed or adopted, and the goods they brought, kept the system running. Interpreters, Comancheros, priests, and agents ride the gaps and learn faces. Horses, blankets, silver, and credit move along the trails, and with them news and pressure. Settle into the wider system, and the first hard choices come into view. Riders swing down by a trading stop and start counting the remuda. Leather smells sharp in the dry morning air. Distant hoof thuds carry over flat land. Sun catches dust motes drifting off a saddle blanket. A wrangler peels off a skittish gelding and loops it back into the herd. Horses are currency here, so careful counts and brands matter, and the tally sets the tone for every deal nearby. Captives in this world served as labor, kin, and leverage between camps and towns. A girl could be set to herd goats or grind. A teenager could be folded into a household. A woman could anchor a bargain with distant kin. These roles fit needs inside Comancheria and along the line of settled towns. Because captives had exchange value, therefore, raids reliably targeted women and children. That logic sat cold under the sun, and it made choices feel narrow. Traders and go-betweens brokered ransoms along these routes. A New Mexican intermediary might ride in with blankets, coffee, and a letter, then speak both sides' words by the corral. A Comanchero might tip a hat toward a family's envoy, then count horses again before even looking at a captive. Everybody kept receipts, just not on paper. Prices lived in memory, in witness talk, in the number of ponies walked over as payment. If talks failed, the leverage soured and risk rose, and a captive might be taken farther, held longer, or shifted into a new kin tie that closed the door on ransom. Kin elders decided who stayed. Older women might be traded or kept for skilled work, while small children were more often adopted and taught new tongues. These calls followed needs after war, disease, and drought, and they shaped who would be sister, wife, or worker. Seasonal timing mattered too. Grass made horses fat, and fat horses made long raids and big markets possible. So camps stocked remudas when the plains were green and pushed deals when trails were safe. Think of captives as high-stakes collateral in a volatile market. Intermediaries linked worlds that distrusted each other, yet depended on steady traffic. A priest's note, a merchant's credit, a chief's promise, and a herd tied to a post could all sit in one bargain. Raids pulled people in. Ransoms or trades sorted them out. Adoption sealed some fates. Goods moved both ways, and each step had rules that were understood, even when they were not written down. The system worked because every side counted costs. All of this ran on incentives more than impulse. Families and bands did hard math with human lives, and the sums decided who slept where by nightfall. The riders by the trading stop knew it, which is why the horses are counted twice, and why the talk stays calm even when eyes are hard. The glow of the small fire at the edge of camp looks steady, but every flicker is backed by a ledger in someone's head. Now shift from the market logic to a road at dusk, and watch what happens when a household is caught in motion. A shout snaps from the far fence. Hoofbeats hit hard, close. A cold wind cuts the throat as dust rises. Riders appear in a rush, ponies quick and sure. Ropes spin above heads, doors slam. Someone calls a name. The street blurs. A raiding party moves like a drill. A scout runs in front to read the ground. A rear guard sits back to watch the town and the trail. Lariats loop and catch. A lariat and rawhide ties turn arms and skirts into cargo fast. Extra mounts wait with hackamores ready. A dropped bonnet snags on thorny brush. Ponies run through grass, belly deep, and turn quick. Gear stays light, bundles tight to saddles. Selection is fast and cold. Raiders grab who can be moved quickly and managed easily. That often means children who can cling. It means girls and young women. It can mean boys not yet strong enough to fight. Elders slow the line. Infants cry and risk a stop. Think of it like a getaway that swaps cars twice to shake pursuit. A taken horse herd moves out too. A moving screen that hides sign. Speed is the point. Because speed kept raiders alive, therefore captives were split and camps scattered fast. One cluster rides for creek cover. Another peels off for open ridges. Separation from kin is an immediate consequence, not a cruel flourish. It ruins the search pattern and buys hours. A whistle or a raised quirt signals a turn. Handoffs happen on the move. A child passes to a fresh rider with a nod. Horses switch, girths tugged tight. A lariat stays on a waist, rawhide ties on wrists or on a saddle thong. They dip into a wash to water. horse breath steams white in the shade of a wash, then they are up and out again. Silence matters, so talk drops to nods and small clicks. Scouts screen the back trail with loops and feints. The rear guard drags a branch or rides a rocky stretch to break sign. Paperwork was not a thing. Confusion was. Neighbors count shoes and petticoats and guess wrong. Trails go cold when 3 paths lead to 4 camps by sunset. Posse riders mount late and argue routes. Streams and stony ground erase tracks. By night, the first chase has faded. The dust settles, and the pace eases to a steady push. Captives sit stiff in the saddle or step down to walk when told. Some get a swallow of water and a strip of meat. The march begins, and the rules of the road start to show. From this burst of flight and confusion, it settles into the slower grind of the first days. A pony carries you double, hips aching against a slick saddle. Rawhide creaks, and a canteen sloshes thinly. Thin shade from a cottonwood flickers over the trail. Sometimes you ride behind a boy who is not much older than you. Rawhide thongs and hobble ropes keep people where the camp wants them. At halts, ankles are looped, or a lead line ties to a mule. Camp women direct tasks and monitor captives. They point to water, lift a kettle, hand out a strip of meat. Grease smoke from a small fire clings to clothing. Men handle raids and horses. Women handle prisoners and food. It's like airport security on horseback, minus the announcements. Because flight risk was constant, therefore guards rotated and rations were measured. Measured food shapes the day. A handful of parched corn, a thin slice of bison, then hours in the saddle. Water can be worse than food. Dehydration and exhaustion risk on long pushes. A canteen rides light. On forced marches, captives eat last and drink last. You learn to sip and wait. Negotiations start with calories. Movement follows a pattern. Scouts range ahead. Rear riders check the line. Captives travel near the center of the column, with a watcher to each side. At night, horses stand with their front legs hobbled. Saddles become pillows, with someone always awake. Talk is quiet, but eyes are busy. A look at your knots tells you how much trust or fear sits in camp. Women under watch build quiet tools. You conserve energy by sitting loose, by saving breath on hills. You learn words for water, food, stop, and kin. You track landmarks with a glance at a butte or a split cottonwood. You watch who carries the knife, who controls the herd, and who holds the rope when you step down. You trade a small chore for an easier tie, or for news of the next stop. A small favor returned for water matters more than talk. Small openings open and close with the rhythm of travel. A few steps off the trail, a longer drink, a lighter tie. Survival hinged on reading routines and small openings. These lessons carry forward when the riding ends. When routes fold into a main village, outcomes shift toward adoption, labor roles, and new kin names. Kin terms can come before affection, as a rule to live by. As the pace eases and wind talk fades, travel slows, and camp life grows into chores and kin decisions. A bison hide lies across a beam. You sit beside it, drawing a bone scraper in steady strokes while 2 elders watch your hands. The sour, sweet scent of wet hide rises under the blade. Warm stones ring a low cooking fire, and the air tastes faintly of smoke. An adopted name could arrive in the first days. Women who brought you in placed you inside their lodge as a junior kin, and the new name said who could speak for you. Adoption naming mattered. It marked a line between household member and captive laborer. Some adoptions tried to fill a gap after a death, easing grief with a new person to care for. Others placed a woman as a junior wife or helper with status that could rise or fall with time. A mother-in-law held authority in many lodges, setting the pace of work and the terms of courtesy. Enslaved status meant no claim on her protection. Adopted status meant a place near the fire and people to answer for you. Kin ties carried weight in Comanche life. Because kin ties created obligations, therefore some captives gained protection through adoption. A child's laughter travels between lodge walls, and the sound can work like a small promise that someone cares where you sleep. The lodge owner could step in if anyone pressed too hard, and her brothers or sons were expected to back her word. It's closer to being transferred into a new department than being freelanced. Daily work filled the hours. Hide tanning came first for many, then water hauling, camp moving, childcare, and food processing. Water sloshed cold in skin buckets. Pack poles thudded soft in the dust. Grease and ash left a thin film on your fingers. In summer, meat dried on racks and berries were crushed for storage. In winter, wood took time to find and carry, and stitching robes kept hands from idling. Seasonal moves set much of the rhythm. When herds shifted, lodges came down fast and travois lined the trail. Horses pulled, while women and girls kept the line together and watched the younger children. Food and gear had to be balanced so nothing important was left. The work taught what to lift first and how to tie loads that would not spill on bad ground. A senior woman tracked who did what. A mother-in-law could direct you to fetch wood, mind a toddler, or carry a folded lodge while the men hunted. She enforced quiet during council and expected speed during moves. She also managed gifts and rations, and knives, beads, or cloth came and went by her say. The job description kept expanding. The trade-off ran clear. Adoption bound you to people who would feed and defend you, but it also cut your autonomy by setting your days and your debts. Rules mapped safety. Doing work well earned small favors, like an extra robe in winter or a lighter load when horses were thin. Refusing work risked punishment or being traded out, while steady effort built trust that could last years. Work and kin bonds set the safe lanes through camp life, and knowing them kept trouble at arm's length. Protection had limits, though. A hard season, a leader's decision, or a chance for ransom could move a household to pass you along. A small fire glow sits steady at the lodge edge as dusk gathers. Let the chores quiet now as we take one calm breath together. Take one slow breath in. Let it out a touch longer. Feel the ribs move under a quiet shirt. Cool night air brushes the edge of a sleeve. Breathe in again. Easy. Let the second exhale stretch a bit more. A blanket sits close. A plain comfort when bodies need rest. The weave feels steady. One more breath in. Slow. Send the air out longest this time. Notice the chest settle and the neck loosen. We noted how some captives were taken into families by custom. Daily roles could change with that shift. Because a household could fold a captive into chores and kin names, therefore her safety sometimes rose while her freedom narrowed. That trade sat at the center of many choices. Let the shoulders drop from the ears. Soften the jaw. Let the hands rest heavy and warm. Bring back the small, steady fire glow. It does not flare. It just holds its place. Embers settle with a faint crackle. Clear lines beat shock. We stay with what is known and simple. so the mind can unclench. Names, roles, and choices can be heard better at this pace. The blanket is still there if you need the image. What comes next touches power and risk. We will keep even hands on it. With your breath steady, we will step carefully into sex, power, and protection. Elders speak low nearby as you sit outside a hide lodge. Beads click softly as a necklace is handled, a small sound in the grass. A flap lifts, and warm air rolls from inside the lodge. A necklace passes from hand to hand as if its weight can settle the question. The talk is not idle. It is about where a captive woman will sleep, work, and who will claim her. Horse and bead gifts often signaled a marriage-type arrangement. A man might bring a horse to her takers, then give her bead strings or cloth. He could claim husband-owner status. That claim was not just private. It set her place in his household, tied her labor to his camp, and told others to ask him if they wanted access or trade. A horse meant wealth and good standing, so the exchange also smoothed relations with her current holder, who had first claim. Senior women managed much of what followed. Mothers, aunts, or widows sat in the lodge, assigned chores, and watched tempers. They could scold a man, move a girl to a safer bed, or barter for better clothing or food. Because status shaped vulnerability, therefore ties to a powerful household could reduce abuse. A respected matron was sometimes the thin fence between rough handling and tolerated peace. They had languages and trading ties, so they could soften a message or make a warning clear. House rules also set limits. The supposed husband expected work and obedience, and he expected intimacy under pressure. Think of protection here like a rough insurance policy with hidden fees. The gifts made a contract of sorts, yet the cost could be steep. Movement might be chaperoned. Visits from trading men could be blocked or allowed only through the elder women who acted as guardians and negotiators. Reputation traveled fast in camp, so people watched a feared man, while a generous one faced fewer disputes. Pregnancy altered the map for many. A child could raise her standing and knit her to the family, but it deepened dependence and made leaving harder. Rescue, if it came, might now pull her from an infant or kin who had shown care. Divided loyalties became daily work. Moonlight picks out the edge of a braided rope by the door, a reminder that animals, people, and choices were all tied. Midwives and aunties kept watch, set diet rules, and decided when she could ride or rest. Consent had a very bad lawyer. Power ties could shield in public and bind in private. Elder women could translate a captor's demand into a tolerable routine. And they could also trap a girl inside that routine when change was risky. A small fire holds a steady glow beside the lodge, and the night stays quiet. Those talks reached trading posts on the Rio Grande and military forts, where intermediaries weighed prices and pride. The next questions sit beyond the doorway, where gifts turn to prices and visits become talks on ransom and uneasy diplomacy, as the trail shifts from household power to negotiation tables and ransom rides. You wait near a dusty plaza while riders approach at a slow, careful walk. Sweat and leather mix under a harsh noon sun. A fly buzzes the rim of a tin cup. An interpreter edges his horse between both sides and names the place and hour as if that could tame it. A settlement agent counts simple coin payments and points toward trading post goods piled in a mule cart. Spurs clink once, then go still. Captives set the price without speaking. Some are brought forward on a calm horse or on foot, shown to signal good faith. Others are kept out of sight, a curtain or brush line between them and the plaza to keep pressure high or to avoid a crowd claim. Negotiators kept voices flat because past betrayals haunted talks. Therefore, meetings carried hair-trigger suspicion. The meeting feels like a hostage exchange staged in a crowded parking lot. Goods move first to test trust. Blankets, coffee, a coil of rope, a few cartridges, and the small stack of coin change hands. A girl might be promised release if another item appears from the post, or if a missing relative is produced at the next meeting place. A man from town swears a note, and a headman nods once. Then the true price is named. Some talks work. A captive crosses the space, climbs into a family wagon, and the party rolls for home under a hot light. Some stall. A woman is traded again to a different group and led away before a counteroffer arrives. Some collapse into flight or fight as nerves snap and a shout breaks the thin quiet. Men scatter for cover. Horses wheel. The plaza empties in a streak of dust. Interpreters and agents held leverage and risk. A single word bent one way could turn a nephew into a cousin and change who had the right to redeem. A mid-level clerk who knew the bands by name could calm a circle, but he also knew the value of a skim. A go-between who married into one camp could serve as a bridge, yet he might be the first suspect if a rider with a rifle appeared on a ridge. Everybody swore they wanted peace until someone reached first. Bands played the market with skill. A captive shown briefly in town could bring a higher price at a river ford 2 days later. A child held back from view might tug at a mother's decision to bring out more coin. Settlers played games too. They promised amnesty in one square and sent a note to a ranger troop to wait in the mesquite, which taught the next band to come armed or not at all. Outcomes lived with the captives long after the plaza dust fell. A ransom could rescue a person into an embrace and a bed, yet the deal could also mark her as tradable, a moving ledger entry that kept her on the road. Families sometimes mortgaged land to pay, then found the captor gone at dawn with both coin and captive. Others took a daughter home only to learn that officials expected a fee, a statement, and new travel for testimony. Ransom could rescue a life, or it could ruin the next chance at return by teaching every camp that this person brought cash. What held the ground together were small habits that lowered the flame of risk. People arrived late on purpose, so no side felt trapped. Gifts were offered first by the side with the most to lose. A boy was allowed to carry water to both camps to show a narrow trust. If a shot came, the pattern broke, and everyone remembered how fragile a handshake could be. From those tense tables, let's walk the camp paths and the quiet calculations captives made between these meetings, where the smallest acts mattered most. You kneel by the stream, scrubbing longer than needed. Cold water numbs your fingers as sunlight flickers on the current. A dragonfly skims the water's skin. Wet cloth drips in steady taps on stone. Up the bank, camp lookouts rotate, one eye on ponies and one on people. Movement sits inside routines. Water runs at set times. Wood runs go in pairs. A boy, an auntie, or a hired captive counts bundles and minutes. Dogs nose the edges and bark at strays. You stretch the chore by inches, not yards, because the watchers mark change, like traders mark beads. Small tactics stack up. You mark which creek, bend hides cattails, which ridge shadow falls earliest, where starlight hits a gap in the trees. You memorize trails, hide small tools, trade favors, and try to gain allies. Because punishment risk was real, Therefore, resistance stayed small and careful. It's closer to changing the thermostat 1 degree than flipping it off. And all tucks into your hair like a plain pin, good for leather, knots, and a break in bad rope. A water gourd waits cached under brush, a quiet promise you can reach on a second pass. Words come next. You learn how to ask for water and wait in Comanche, how to use kin terms that soften a command, how to catch a joke and laugh at the right time. You pick up Spanish from traders and the hand signs that many on the plains shared. Language works like a spare key, opening small doors others do not see. A softer request gets an easier chore. A right word buys a slower horse. A nod from a woman you helped yesterday turns into a lookout who looks away for one long breath. Patience outran most horses. Escape stayed risky. Riders ranged far. Neighbor bands stopped, strangers on the move. Traders and soldiers carried news, and sometimes carried you back. A second capture could mean rough handling or a quick swap, and people who helped could face reprisals. So many waited for the season to shift, for a flood to scour tracks, for a hunt to pull the camp wide. Some slipped to the edges during storms. Some left signs near forts or missions and then circled back to be picked up when the price or the politics made sense. A few walked away with permission after long years, folded into new kin, then ransomed by a cousin with silver to spare. Most saw freedom come slow, bought with steady work and careful talk. Agency survived in inches, not miles, from the stream. The road ahead tilts toward returns and the heavy job of going home. The kind that can feel strange to the feet, even when the gate swings open. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Let it out, and let your shoulders fall a little. Air cool at the tip of the nose. The room is quiet. Take a second breath, steady and easy. Exhale, and let the weight slide off your shoulders again. Jaw soft, tongue resting, mouth easy. People adapted to the space they had. Captive women learned routes through rules of ransoming, adoption, labor, and marriage ties. Because raids, kin obligation, and trade fixed the edges of life, therefore, choices bent to those edges. Some learned the words they needed, enough to trade, tease, or ask for help. Some kept a plan ready for the day a trading party or a soldier's patrol came near. Some worked hard within new households to gain shelter and standing. Some guarded children and small stores of goods as leverage for a safer place. Networks carried names and news to posts and towns, and ransoms sometimes moved through relatives, traders, and officials. Others shaped a life inside the band itself, with tasks at the kettle, the hide rack, and on the trail. None of this erased what hurt, but it showed how people found grip on rough ground. A campfire marked the center of a band at night, the place you could face to find your way. That small glow we kept as a steady point still burns in the mind. Ash settles like gray snow around coals. A light breeze lifts the edge of a shawl. Horse lines quiet, voices low, work set aside for a few hours. You are in a safe room now. The fire is a picture only. In many camps, a new name came with new kin. An older woman might speak it, and it would stick in daily talk. A name could point to a trait, a season, or a remembered day. It tied a person to a set of duties and protections, and it told others how to speak to her. Hands can loosen now. Let your brow soften. Names held safety and status, yet they could blur the path back to an older self. Quiet thanks for the endurance that kept lives moving in narrow rooms and wide grass. Many who left the camps faced reintegration in towns and ranch homes. Some stepped through familiar doors with unfamiliar habits, new kin ties, and a new name to explain. Some returned by ransom or rescue, and some by slow negotiation through traders and agents. Newspapers printed names and turned plain details into headlines and drama. Families argued over custody and choice, and courts or councils sometimes weighed in. Communities told stories that hardened into legend, and those stories shaped how others understood the plains. Memory set a hard trade-off in the heart. Remembering could keep a thread to kin and self. Letting go could make daily life lighter. Let this breath carry us toward returns, headlines, and the afterlives of these lives. You step into a quiet room that smells of soap and starch. Lamplight pools on a rough table. Floorboards creak under unfamiliar shoes. A calico dress waits on a chair, or a blanket is offered at the door, a small sign that home has rules and gifts. A clerk, a minister, or an Indian agent leans over the table and writes. Names go down, dates, the path home. Ink feathers at the edge of a signature. The voice pauses, and the pen keeps working. Forms stack. These notes fix a version of events that officials can pass up the chain. Back home, words can feel foreign. A tongue learned on the plains slips out first. Children left behind pull at every quiet moment, and some are barred by distance or policy. Neighbors study posture, dress, and tone, and some judge. Alienation settles in, and custody loss can follow. Questions come fast, then stop, and the table stays quiet at supper. Family speaks up, clergy advise, agents guide, and newspapers take notes. Because communities preferred simple stories, therefore complex truths were edited for print. Short lines win space. Complications wait in the margins. Editors trim. Ministers frame it as trial. And officials file it as recovery. Headlines stacked above the fold. Think of it like a photo filter that wipes away the background. Headlines often stripped out the messy settings. Nuance sells poorly on a broadsheet. The result is a memory that sets firm, then hardens into legend. Women who crossed languages, who kept ties with Comanche kin, or who chose to return, slip out of the frame. Mothers who came back with mixed families could be praised in print, yet meet walls at home. Courts and kin decided futures, and some lost custody of their children or guardianship to relatives or county men. Reports fed calls for patrols, posts, and stricter terms in councils, while quieter returns drew little ink. Some women sought visits with children who stayed with Comanche families, or refused to deny those bonds, and those acts rarely fit tidy lines. Official files grew tidy, and the lives remained complicated. The room settles again. Soap and starch linger. The small gifts, the ink, the careful words, they all try to make sense. Clarity can be gentle, and it can let you rest. Let the room fall quiet now as we close with care. Hard history sits heavy, but holding it calmly matters. On the southern plains, captivity, trade, and rescue moved within rules and pressures. Captives might be adopted, traded, or ransomed, each path with terms. Leaders weighed horses, goods, and alliances, and families on many sides tried to pull loved ones back. Clear understanding shows people making hard choices inside those systems, not flat heroes or villains. Thank you for staying with steady curiosity and care. Listening with patience gives room for nuance and for the people inside these stories. It honors those who endured and those who searched and bargained for return, even when the end was complicated. lives crossed, motives mixed, and no single label fits. Now let your breath slow, in and out. Set your jaw loose and your shoulders softer. You are safe, and the story is at rest for tonight. If this helped you unwind, a quiet like or subscribe is welcome. Only if it feels kind to your night. I wish you good rest and a quiet night. Picture a low ember glow, the prairie wide and dim, wind soft at the grass. Let the plains dim and fall quiet, and let the small room come back around you. Cool air, a steady hush, and a mind that can settle. Rest with a low ember glow and the comfort of a cool, dark room.